My guest today helped build one of the most culturally vibrant events in Queens, the Golden Festival. And he has been carrying the Balkan tradition in music for decades. Michael. Hi, Michael.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Thanks for coming. And take me back to your childhood. Was something in your childhood that connected you to the Balkan roots and to your work right
Okay.
now?
So I grew up in Brooklyn, first near the Brooklyn Navy Yards, and then we moved to Midwood when I was in the third grade. And both my parents were involved in folk dancing. And from time to time, I would accompany them to some folk dance event that they were part of. And so uh, a lot of kids, boys in particular, grow up with this sort of negative idea about dancing, that it's not masculine. But, I got to see my father dance and my mother dance, and there was none of that for me. It was, a nice activity. I was mostly interested in athletics, and I played a lot of tennis and was on the tennis team in high school and college. But when I was in my early teens, my mother said to me, there's a group of teenagers from this neighborhood who go to a teenage folk dance in Manhattan, run by Marianne and Michael Herman at a place called Folk Dance House. It was a studio dedicated to folk dancing 7 days a week, 24/7 basically. And so I went, and there were many, many teenagers from high school age teenagers doing international folk dancing, and Marianne Herman would teach them for an hour or so, and then just put on recordings, and we would dance. And so my start basically was doing international dancing, and just for me it was a recreational activity, and I kind of took to it as if it were another sport.
And when you say international folk dancing, give me some examples of what kind of
So we
international.
did dances from all over. We did the Spanish dances, we did English dances, we did square dances, we did contra dances, American styles. We did from South America, Mexico. Um, one Mexican corrido was one of them. I still remember corrido from Mexico, and from time to time, some specialist would come in and teach a dance from a particular area. So anyway, before all of that happened, I was just doing international folk dancing as a sport, and one Saturday evening, we had the dances on Saturday evening. Marianne Herman taught a dance called Trite Puti. It's a Bulgarian dance from Thrace. It's kind of a generic dance. Every village in Thrace has a version of this dance, Trite Puti. It means the 3 times. And anyway, so she taught it, and I didn't get it. I struggled with it, and that evening, lying in my bed, going over how she showed this dance, Triti Putti, and how I wasn't getting it, and thinking, going over how she taught it, and suddenly something clicked, and I said, "Oh, this must be what it is." And I got out of my bed, and it was now past midnight, and I'd been thinking about this, and I did it and made sure it would work when I actually did it with my feet, and it did. And the next time we went for dancing, I checked it out, and yes, that was exactly what she was teaching. And so at the same time that I learned Triti Putti, I also learned kind of the language of folk dance, that is, how a dance is constructed structurally. And it was really, really clear to me. It became very, very clear. And that was kind of the beginnings of my becoming a teacher of dance. Every dance now I saw very clearly. I saw what the structure is, how it related to the music. And so at the age of 16, I began teaching dance. Now, up to then, I was doing international dancing, and it turns out that all of my favorite dances turned out to be from the Balkans. They were line dances. One lovely thing about line dances as a shy teenager is you don't have to ask someone to dance with you. there's a circle dancing, and you see a place to go into the circle, and you go in, and you're in, and now you're holding hands with other people, okay? And it's like, wow. For me, socially, that was just heaven.
It makes me smile because I'm from Bulgaria, so selfishly I invited you here. But
Yeah.
and when you say trite pati, it just warms my heart. But I think back in the day, that's how teenagers, people used to meet each other and
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
start to
So for
dance.
folk dancing, for me, was not only a sport, but it was a sport in which I could sort of grow socially. And by the time I was 16, a group of guys, a couple of other guys, and me decided we would start teaching. And we were teaching at Folk Dance House. We were teaching Balkan dance, basically. So that's kind of how I got into it. Balkan dances chose me. I know I had a wide variety of things I did and I knew, and my favorites, just before I even understood that they were from the Balkans, turned out to be from the Balkans.
And for the audience, again, you have no connection in your DNA with the Balkans, right?
None that I know of. Right.
Which is amazing to me because there are a lot of Bulgarian people that don't have that connection with Bulgaria, with the folk dance,
Right.
with the folk music. And we're kind of Americanized in a lot of ways. So to meet someone like you who has no connection to the Balkans but loves the Balkans, and you mentioned that you went to Bulgaria and visit often, and you teach also dance. We'll talk about it later, but it's incredible.
It is, and what you said reminds me of. So for a long time I was dancing, teaching dancing, and I always loved the music. And at one point I had a girlfriend who had just returned from Croatia, having had a grant to study music in Croatia. She came back and she, like me, had piano lessons when she was growing up. And she took up the accordion so she could accompany herself on these songs that she learned in Serbia and Croatia. But along the way, she also discovered that she could play like Bulgarian dances, hora, and I said to myself, I have the same experience she does. I can play the piano. I could probably take the accordion. So I got an accordion and I started to play Bulgarian dances, because Bulgarian accordion music, and it's like, for a long time I loved this music. I had no idea it was an accordion playing. To me, an accordion was, you'd play polkas on the accordion. To have this wonderful athletic stuff happening on the accordion was like, wow, is that right? So anyway, I started to play the accordion, and then there's a group called the East European Folk Life Center, EEFC, and they organize now, currently, 2 week-long seminars in Balkan music and dance in the summer. One is in Mendocino, California, in the woodlands, middle of the woods, no electricity. And the other one is up in the Catskill Mountains here, in something rock. Anyway, it's near Monticello, at a boys' camp, at a camp for children. So anyway, they, after doing this camp on the West Coast for many years, decided to try one on the East Coast, and they found a place near Woodstock and did it, and I heard about it, and I brought my accordion to the camp to study with a Bulgarian accordionist. His name was Lyubin Tachev, who is living now in the United States and married to a friend of mine who's also an accordionist. So I went with my accordion, but I also saw, they have a teacher who's going to teach brass band music. And I had played the trumpet in high school, and junior high school and high school. And I still had it in my closet someplace, so I went to find my trumpet and dusted off the case and brought it to camp and went to take the brass band class. So the first day of class, the teacher comes and he's got like 5 cartons stuffed with papers. And he's handing out these papers to the various people who had come to take the class, and it turns out that's sheet music, mostly handwritten, because nothing is
Yeah.
published with this kind of music, basically, back in 1983. Okay, nothing. So he hands this music out, and I'm looking at the music, and I haven't played the trumpet now in many, many years, but I remember the fingering, and I could get the first octave out. Okay, and I'm looking at this music, and I don't know if you read music or not, but
No.
okay, so the sheet is almost black with notes because there's so many notes on
Wow.
the page. And so it means it's very fast. The notes come very fast. You have to play a lot of notes in a short amount of time. And so anyway, I already know, okay, my goal is if I can play like half the notes, I'll be very happy and satisfied. So we go for 9 days of camp. We're just reading through these music, 20 different pieces we have to read through. And most of the people in the class were like me, hadn't played their instruments in a long time. And the drummers could keep the rhythm. So I described that sound as noise and drum was what we sounded like. Noise and, and it was, the drummer kept the rhythm, and we, had noise on top of that. Anyway, the last day comes, and it turns out that the brass band is responsible for the party on the last night. We're playing for the dancers. And suddenly the people who are on staff, there are about 22 staff people, okay, and teaching various instruments. Many of them had played saxophone or clarinet, and then took up folk instruments as well, gaida, the bagpipe, the flute, the kaval, tambura. Anyway, so they came with their instruments and they joined the band and they could play. And suddenly what was noise and drum became music. And the folk dancers, who had never heard anything like this in their lives, just went crazy. And we'd play and they would cheer, yeah, it was like, wow, what an experience to do that. So out of this came a band called, and we named ourselves eventually Zlatne Uste, the Golden Lips.
And how old were you at that time?
Let's see, about 34,
Okay.
35, 30, in my mid-30s. So we made a band. We got together for rehearsals, and I was running with another group of people a weekly folk dance, and when my turn came, I had the brass band come and play for the dancers, and the same thing happened in New York City. Dancers went crazy. Everybody was.
And
So
what instruments did you have? So you had the
at the time we had
bagpipe.
no, it was a brass band.
Oh,
So we had
okay.
trumpets. At the time, trumpets, trombones. We had a tuba with saxophones, clarinets, and some drummers.
So about 6 people?
And
or-
then we also had an accordion. No, we started out about 13 or 14 people. We were
Wow, that's massive.
yeah.
Okay.
It was pretty massive. And then so we kept the band going, and we heard about this thing that happens in Serbia every year. It's a trumpet competition in a little town called Guča, right in central Serbia, a state called Dragačevo. And we thought, oh, wouldn't it be great to go there, to go there and as a band to go there. And we thought, oh, we mulled this over for a while. And then in 1986, a man named George Tomov, who was from Macedonia, he danced with the national ensemble called Tanets, and he was running a folk dance troupe that performed in the United States now. He was living in New York. Well, he asked Zlatne Uste to come and play for one of his concerts, to play one of the suites for the dancers and to play during an intermission, to play one of our tunes. So we did that, and during another intermission, I went to the lobby and I saw George, and I walked over and I said, hi, George, and he introduced me to this man called Dusan Simic. He said Dusan Simic is the New York representative from the newspaper Politika, which is the New York Times of Belgrade. Okay, so, we're talking, and I say, Mr. Simic, we've been thinking, I know we've heard about this festival in Guča, and we'd really like to go there, and we have no idea how to do that. Do you have any ideas? His words to me were, they will love you. There is no problem. I said, "What do you mean?" He says, "Well, my colleague is the editor-in-chief of Ilustrovne Politika. It's the life magazine of Belgrade, okay? And they are the sponsors of the festival in Guča. I'm sure they will invite you. I will tell Exim." Sure enough, a couple of months later, I get a letter from Ilustrovne Politika. They invite us to come to Serbia, all expenses paid.
Incredible.
And so we go there, and what you said to me was like what every reporter said to me. They said, "You have no roots to Balkans at all. You have all this different kind of music in New York. You have access to, jazz. You have rock. You got pop. You got, Motown. There's everything. Why this music?" And so, we just had to say, we love this music. It's really.
And so after that, where did you continue playing in New York?
So by this time, we had already started our Golden Festival because we started.
How did that came about?
That came about because coming from camp, there was the camp that we came from, this operated by EEFC, needed some money. And they asked people to do fundraisers. So we thought, okay, we can raise a little funds. We'll do this festival. We invited another group that would like us. They had been playing Balkan music in New York for a few years, the Balkanizers. And it's hard to find gigs, There's not a big demand for a Balkan band, especially in 1983, 84. So we'll do the Golden Festival and we'll invite this other band and we'll advertise it as the Golden Festival, and it was very successful. More than about 150 people came. We had a couple of bands. We were in a studio in Soho.
And explain for the viewers who have never been to the Golden Festival or don't know what that is. So explain, what does it have? How is it structured?
Yeah. So currently now, this is like 43, 44 years later than we started. Currently, we have the festival in Queens at a place called the Astoria Marquis, which used to be the Astoria World Manor. And it's a catering hall with about 11 different rooms. And, it's got nice brass fittings and crystal chandeliers. And it's, we had been at a place in Brooklyn before called the Grand Prospect Hall, which was an incredible place that was destroyed when it was sold. So this place was kind of reminiscent of the Grand Prospect Hall, and it looked like it was going to be great for us. So we decided to have the festival here, and we used currently.
And Astoria also has a huge Balkan population.
Balkan population, especially
Yes.
Greek,
Yes.
And so we decided to do it there, and we use 4 of the rooms for music, and we have 1 room for snacks and this wonderful meze that we offer. That's part of the entry. People don't pay for food there. And now we have 1 room that we call a kafana. We have a group called the Brooklyn Grind. They make Turkish coffee, and they sell it there with all kinds of wonderful Balkan desserts, pastries like baklava and Balkan versions of it. So it's like things are happening all over in the hall.
So in one room there are bands, and in the other
So
vendors who sell food
We have actually 3 rooms with bands going at one time.
at the same time.
At the same time, yeah. We have all this is happening at the same time.
Okay.
3 rooms of bands for dancing, and 1 room is for listening, where we have groups like some people might have heard of les voix mystères de Bulgarie, the mysterious voices of Bulgaria.
Yes.
This is multi-harmony singing voices with a cappella mostly. That is astoundingly beautiful.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Basically.
I'm biased, but yes.
Yes. No. Well, no, this is a kind of music that sort of escaped the local audience that became well known among outsiders too.
So that's in the listening room.
So that's in the listening room. We have many groups that come that kind of singing. We have a Ukrainian group that does that kind of singing. We have couple of Bulgarian groups that do it. We've had Serbian and Croatian groups that sing. It's just a wonderful.
Is there a dance room?
3 dance rooms.
So in every of the rooms, people can dance where the band is playing?
Yes.
Or there's separate rooms?
No. They dance
Okay, they
to the
dance.
music, to the live music of the bands. Yeah.
And then there's another area where all the food vendors
In one area,
are.
one room is devoted just for the food, and another little area we call our kafana is for Turkish coffee, and also there's a listening place for just acoustic music, no amplification.
That sounds massive.
It's
How
massive.
many people you had the last time? It was in 2025, right?
We no 2026. We had it, and it's over the Martin Luther King weekend.
Right.
So
Time
it's
goes by
Friday
quickly.
and Saturday now. We do it 2 days. Friday it's just one room. So we have 5 bands rotating through playing dance music. And so there's dancing to one band at a time.
How many people you had the last time?
So we have about 800 people come on Friday and about 2,700 people come on Saturday.
That is huge.
Yeah.
27.
It's big.
Wow.
We sell out. Yeah.
Did you imagine this becoming of the festival when you started it? And was the idea in the beginning to become that?
No. I think nobody who was involved in the beginning of this festival, I'm one of them, but the whole band was involved at the time, envisioned that this would happen. It's very interesting. You know, we had this party, and then gradually other musicians heard about it, and then they would call me and say, you know, can we play too? So it went from 2 bands. The first year, 3, 4. We had a friend who played Scandinavian music. She'd go, and I play too. Okay, come, we'll do some. She played Scandinavian music, and it attracted people who like to do these couple dances. You know, in Scandinavia, the culture is the musician plays in the center of the room of a violin, and the couples spin around the outside, do spinning dances with each other. So we did that. And then, you know, gradually, including professional musicians would call and say, you know, can we play too? And nobody ever got paid. No musicians get paid for the Golden Festival. The only people get paid are the people associated with the hall.
Okay.
Everybody else is volunteers. And so we got to the point where we were having, you know, quite a bit of making a profit, let's say, we call it. It was above our expenses. And we realized, you know, we can't pay ourselves either. We're not paying anybody else. And so we decided that the money would go to charitable institutions. And for several years, there was a war happening in the Balkans, and lots of refugees, and so we donate a lot of money to like Doctors Without Borders who are working in the area, and other institutions that were working with refugees. And
Festival with a cause.
yeah, so
That's a great idea.
I mean, to this day, we don't make any
Yeah.
money from this festival.
So you are in the music industry, so to speak. How did you see it change throughout the years? And I'm sure now more and more people embrace specifically Balkan music because there are more and more immigrants. But did you see that shift happening?
I'm really not in the music industry. This is a once a year thing, and I play with 4 different bands, and I can't even call that part of the music industry. We play gigs for dancers, mostly small gigs and little festivals around. What I see is a closer tie between Americans who play this kind of music and the people from the Balkans, musicians who are trained in the Balkans, who've come to America for various reasons. And so, for example, this camp that I still attend, and I've been on the faculty for 30 years or so, teaching stuff. Now many people on the staff are professional musicians from the Balkans, and they're teaching us. At the beginning, it was Americans who had gotten involved with this kind of music as a hobby and they got very good. But never quite at the level of the professionals who are the training in these countries is incredible, you know.
And let's talk about dance because you're also involved in folk dance, Bulgarian folk dance.
Right.
Talk to me about that and how did that started? I know you're doing it in the Upper East Side. I attended once.
Right.
And I met you there. I didn't know I met you until I saw you today.
Yeah.
But it's a great experience because me as a Bulgarian, when I went, there were a lot of American people.
A lot
just
of them,
like you.
mostly
not
American
related.
people, but
Yes.
some Bulgarians. You know, when people like Lubo, who was playing the bagpipe, when they played, and we're having later in March, we're having someone from Pittsburgh come, a wonderful accordionist. I'm having trouble with his name right now, but it'll come to me, I'm sure, before we're done.
How did that started?
So when I came back to New York after living in North Carolina for 5 years, and by this time I had been teaching Balkan dances at, leaders of folk dancing would hold getaways at hotels in the Catskills or so, and hire a teacher to teach a specialty to lure people to come and to their event. So anyway, I was being hired once in a while to teach Balkan dance at these events. I was not just Bulgarian, but I was teaching Serbian, a little bit of Albanian, Croatian, some Greek. Anyway, I moved to New York, and there's an institution here. They're currently called the Ethnic Folk Arts Center, EFAC. At the time, they were called Balkan Arts. And they were starting folk dance classes at a studio that they operated on Varick Street, and they asked me to do a Balkan dance class. So that's kind of where it started. It was like 1981 that I started. 70, yeah, when I returned from North Carolina to live in New York. And so I was teaching this class for many, many years, and I had nice attendance. I sort of ran it like every 12 weeks we'd do a repertoire of about 18 dances, and I would teach them sort of to go for mastery of these dances. And over the years, I had maybe between 20 and 30 people come attend regularly to these weekly classes. It was not a subscription. People would just come. Some people came to all of them. Some came to some of them. And several years ago, say 6 or 7 years ago, I noticed, it was hard not to notice, that there was a drop in attendance, this kind of drop. It wasn't
Gradual.
this kind of drop. It was kind of like fell off the cliff. And I realized that the audience for what I was doing had shriveled. That people wanted something something else. And I saw that, at the same time, the Golden Festival was drawing over the weekend 3,000, 4,000 people, young people, people who were not into folk dancing, just came because it was a great event, and the music was great, and they wanted to dance, and many, many, many of them who didn't know how to dance wanted to get in the circle and dance with people, do the steps, not just jump up and down, which a lot of people would just do that. And so I said, okay, let me think. I'm going to do something that involves live music, and I'm going to do something that makes it easy for non-dancers to join in. And so there's this form of dance, American dance, called contra dancing, where contra dancing is lines of people facing each other, and you have these long lines, and each couple will do a series of moves in a groups of four, and at the end of this group, the head couple would move on to the next group. So, and before the dancers would dance to the music, there would be a caller who would talk people through the dance. So you didn't have to have any experience to join in. You could have, a practice round. So I said, hey, that's a great idea. So I do a practice round with people on Wednesday nights when I teach to give people a shot at getting the dance. And
That's a wonderful idea.
yeah,
If somebody wants to sign up, I know you have it on Facebook, or
right.
do you have a website where can they join?
We have a website. It's it's on Facebook, Balkan Wednesdays or Balkan Cafe. Either one will get you
Okay.
to what we do, and you don't really have to sign up. You can come anytime. We operate on Wednesdays from 7:15 to 9:15.
I love our conversation. Anything that we didn't talk about that you would like to mention? I know you said to me that you were a teacher before. We didn't talk about that. Let's talk a
Okay,
little bit
yeah,
about that.
well, yeah. So when I came back to New York, having lived in North Carolina, where I was teaching tennis, for the Chapel Hill Recreational Department, and it was one of those things, being in the right place at the right time. I started with a couple of classes, 8 people in a class, and by the time I was finished, I was doing 10 classes a day, completely full. The classes would be signed up instantly; they would be announced. Anyway, so I came back to the city, and I I still really didn't know what I was going to do, but I went back to Brooklyn College to see if I could finish my degree. And anyway, I finished my degree, and I ran into my ex-tennis coach at Brooklyn College, and he said, there's this program at Teachers College, you might be interested in that, to study physical education, because that's the only thing I had really ever gotten excited about in education was sports. So I went to Teachers College. I went there and I sort of applied, and I was accepted. And then basically the Teachers College was accepting anybody who could pay the tuition. So I went there, I got a master's, and continued on to do a doctorate. But anyway, before I got my doctoral degree, I had a few experiences teaching in college, but not one or two classes. Anyway, this opening came out, and my advisor said, there's this opening at Bank Street. They might like you. You might like it. So I went to interview at Bank Street for this full-time position to teach, and they hired me. And I wound up staying there for 33 years, teaching physical education at Bank Street, and it was a really good place for me. They let me do what I wanted, basically, which was to have children play various sports. It turns out that way back, many, many years ago, I was teaching in the 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. One of my students happened to be Zoran Mamdani.
What a coincidence.
Yeah. If you're watching, congratulations. I know Zoran was a representative from Queens at one point.
Yes, he used to live in Astoria.
Yeah, and Astoria, right. I mean,
Yeah.
you were right there. And, I'm not the only connection to Zoran. There's someone in my band, his son was really, really good friends with Zoran in high school, and they still communicate with each other.
Great.
So anyway, Zoran, I'd like to invite you to the Golden Festival next year. And I don't want you to come as the mayor. I want you to come as Zoran. No political speeches. This is a non-political event. Just come. I think you'd really have a good time.
Maybe he already been there.
Maybe. But all right.
Okay, I always ask my guests the same question in the
Okay.
end. I think I know the answer to this one, but maybe you can change it. So, if someone wanted to experience Queens the way you do,
Right.
with the culture and music, something unexpected, where would you send them?
I'd send them to the Golden Festival.
I knew the answer to
Right.
that.
But there are also, I only know the Greeks, in Astoria, and I know they hold over the course of the year various of the Greek communities, and the Greeks are not just one community. There are various. There's from Kastoria, there's from Pontos, the mainland. There's all kind of island. There are island groups, and they all hold their own kind of events in Queens that open to the public. And they're just wonderful events. They don't generally advertise out there, but you can probably find them on Facebook, and
Great.
they're wonderful events.
Thank you for the suggestion. Thank you for coming. And that's it for today's show. I'll see you next time on Around Queens.